But I've actually looked at different mic modeling mics out there, like the UAD or the Slate. They kind of have their modeling software now that runs the microphones. I've been thinking about maybe one of those because I've heard good things about the UAD and the Slate one.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like once you standardize the mic, they know exactly what the mic itself is going to behave like. And so their models can be a little more predictable. If that makes any sense, you know?
Yeah.
Because they know exactly what they're accounting for.
Yeah, and I guess you could kind of tweak it depending on the application.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice. This is the, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Pure Tube.
Oh.
Can't really see the front of it unless I try to, I don't know if I could take it out. It's on a cord.
Oh, it does have a tube. Oh, you have a tube mic as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Mine has two, Dan. Mine has two tubes.
You're extra special.
That's why it's the Gemini. It's the dual tube.
Yeah. This thing sounds good. I've heard a lot of tubes, and I think this is one of my favorites because it doesn't have any like external controls at all. It's just that's why it's called the Pure Tube. It's just the tube sound. They didn't do any coloration or whatever to it at all. It's kind of transparent and raw in that way. I love it for vocals. It's really made for vocals, I think. That's how they advertise it. They gave me 2 of them for the podcast.
Oh, cool.
Dude, it's so good to see you, man. It's been a long time. I think the first time we met was that at an Indianapolis Ableton user group with Thomas Falls?
Yeah.
I think that was the first time we met.
I think so, yeah.
And then we hung out at Gear Fest. And then we hung out for the certified training event, my certified training, which, by the way, thanks for passing me. And
that's a really fun part of the work, getting to do this.
Yeah, it was a great experience overall. We can't talk too much about the details of that event, but it really taught me how to be a better teacher and how to really think through how I'm communicating on a technical level, on just like an instructional, like interpersonal level. And it was a fantastic event. And I feel like I'm a much better producer and educator because of the certified training. Yeah, and meeting you and Dennis and Bruce and all the people involved in that event was an incredible experience.
For us as well, like it's always, there's just all of the other people that you meet at certification. Like there are so many talented, inspiring people. And it's like such a, I mean, I don't know, that's like the bread and butter of my job is like to get to work with the community of people that use live and are inspired by it and help each other and connect with each other. And so like, that is like the most concentrated example of that ever, like to get to spend a whole weekend with all of these people that are excited about this. And they're all super talented and they're all super committed and they're really earnest and passionate, but like maybe also all a little nervous, which helps them like connect. You know what I mean? Like they're immediately cut through any sort of social awkwardness. They're just all really a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I was too, for sure. Yeah. I might just be better at hiding it, but I was definitely sweating. I applied extra deodorant every day.
I was nervous as hell for mine as well.
Yeah.
I was really over-prepared for my own certification. Like, I don't know if I've told you this before, but like...
No.
Not always, but oftentimes when I'm nervous about something, I'll like over-prepare as a way to deal with being nervous about it. By the time I got to LA to do the certification event, I felt like I could have just sent my girlfriend to do it instead of me because she'd heard me do the presentations so many times. Like, yeah, I'd run through them in our living room for her so many times that it was like... For my certification, here is Lauren, who will just do all of my presentations for you.
That's hilarious. That's funny. Honestly, she should probably be certified at this point if she's heard all of your trainings over and over. Yeah.
She probably could.
That's funny. And then I think the last time we saw each other in person was probably at Loop, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Oh, God bless. Man, I miss Loop.
I miss Loop so much. I think everybody does. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah. I don't think we'll get back to Loop for a long time, but it sure was a great thing to get to do.
It really was, man. It was very inspiring. It was a great way to bring community together from all different experience levels using live or just music in general.
Yeah, I mean, and so many people that don't use live at all, like just to get really talented, interesting, inspiring people in a room together for a weekend is like awesome to get to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of feed off that energy. And
definitely. And I know that some new Ableton user groups were even inspired out of the loop from people I've met in Canada and other places around the country, started some user groups because of loop, finding out about that.
Yeah, totally.
So that was cool.
Like to want to keep that energy going.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love for people to get to know you a little bit better. This is your episode. You're a very interesting person. You've done a lot of cool things outside of Ableton and with Ableton over the years. How long have you been with Ableton? When did you start working there?
I started working at Ableton full time in 2014. Although like long before that, I was like freelancing. I started teaching Ableton Live before there was a certified training program in the first place. So there wasn't really like this clear line between people who like were and weren't certified or anything like that. There were just people who liked to go out and talk about live and teach and help other people make music. And so I probably started teaching live in New York City in like 2005. And so started getting hired by Ableton to go and do workshops and classes and artist trainings and stuff like that. Years ago, this is probably like Live 7 or something. This was like 2007 or something like that. I went out to the AES convention that was in New York City every year. And like Live 7 had like just come out. And so Houston Singletary was there running the booth for Ableton, had the new software set up and everything. I came out just to like say hi and see who was there. So I got to the booth and I say hi to Houston. And one of the first things Houston says to me is like, "Hey, Ben, it's so good to see you. I haven't had a break in a really, really long time. It's like just constant action here. Could you like watch the booth for me for just a minute? I really like, I just need to run and like grab a drink and stuff like that." And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, man, whatever. Yeah, go for it. And so he runs off and I'm just like sort of standing there at the Ableton booth. And so after like 3 or 4 minutes, somebody walks up and is like, "Hi, hey, what's new with Live 7? And so I just start showing them. I'm just like, "Hey, here's the new stuff that's been added and this is how it works. And you can put the different things together in this way." And I sort of notice like I'm facing the computer. So I kind of have my back to the room and I have them next to me. And then as I'm talking, I sort of notice somebody else is like on my other shoulder and somebody else is kind of behind me. And I sort of thought that it was like maybe like 3 people, 4 people maybe around me watching me. But after like 20, 25 minutes, I like finish going through all the like new stuff and I turn around and there's like 25 people behind me watching me do this improvised presentation on like Live 7. And the person who's at the back of the crowd is Gerhardt, the founder and CEO of Ableton, watching this guy who does not work for him do this presentation at his booth.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
And so I finished up and said hi and he's like, "How did that feel? Did you enjoy that? Was that fun?" So like in some ways, yeah, I started full time at Ableton in 2014, but I've been working alongside the folks at Ableton for years before that.
That's hilarious. You basically were doing a job interview tryout without even knowing it. He's just sitting there.
Yeah.
I would have been way more nervous knowing he was there watching.
I would have been too. I had no idea. I mean, I'm one of those weirdos that like right there behind me is my like Live 1 box.
Oh, that's amazing. Like yes, back in the good old days with the CD-ROMs.
Yeah. There's like a spiral bound manual and a CD-ROM in there. And at the time I bought it, it also comes with like the groovy free update to Live 2. So I've got like a sticker on it that says includes Live 2.
That's incredible. I think someday that's probably going to be worth like more money. I think it's going to be kind of like a classic. Yeah, for sure. That's incredible.
Maybe.
So going back a little bit before the tryout that you didn't know about at ADS for working at Ableton, what was your music background like growing up? Like, how did you eventually discover Live?
I mean, as a kid, I grew up just north of Baltimore in Maryland. And I grew up kind of involved in like the Baltimore punk scene at the time, the sort of DIY scene. And I realized pretty early on that I wanted to work with musicians. I don't know if I was ever super confident that I was a musician at that stage, but I knew I wanted to work with musicians. Like I sometimes joke that I got into music through being a roadie, which I kind of did. I just made friends with a lot of musicians and started carrying amps to shows and like helping to set up gear.
That's important.
And that turned into like begging and pleading with my parents for a 4-track recorder, like in my freshman year of high school, and spending most of high school going out and like recording some really talented and some less talented punk bands all around Baltimore with my 4-track recorder and taking over the basement to set up a little DIY studio to record stuff. And then one day I heard UK Jungle. And it had all of the same like rough, crazy, powerful, dangerous energy that punk had at that like same crazy fast tempo, but totally got me inspired and interested in electronic music and sampling and the way all of this like digital and digital gear and synthesizers like could be very punk rock in their own way, could be like very subversive and wild and dangerous.
Yeah.
So I went out and I bought a groove box. Like I bought like a little box I could start to try to make beats alongside my 4-track with, and started putting together ideas and sounds. And when I finished high school, I was like, okay, if I'm going to go to college, I probably want to go to college in the UK because this is where all of this amazing music is being made. And I want to be right there in it with all this music that's being made. So I applied to an art school in the UK and I got in and went over and did my undergrad there and got to play some amazing parties, and then just started throwing some fun parties of my own with some friends and started making music that really wasn't quite jungle. Like the jungle scene had sort of moved on to drum and bass and other things. And at this point, early Warp Records, experimental dance music had started to explode across the UK. And started a party, had a lot of fun throwing a party. I still recommend if you want to break into music, start throwing parties. It's an amazing way to get people together, share your music taste. One of the best ways to get gigs as a musician is to book other musicians for gigs. Totally like connect with artists you love and find a way to get them to come play for you.
Yeah. It's a lot of work, but if you can pull it off, then absolutely it's a great networking opportunity. Yeah.
Absolutely. It worked super well for us. After like 4 or 5 years of throwing parties in the UK, we managed to turn our party into a little indie record label and ran this little indie record label for years, and then eventually sold it to a much bigger record label. And
wow.
Yeah. After my undergrad, I went back to the UK to do a master's of music composition, just because, partly because I wanted to study more, but partly because I really wanted to keep investing in the label and the party and the music. And after art school ended, I moved back to New York, and it was kind of wild. Like I picked up using Ableton Live for my own creative practice. Like at this time, I knew I wanted to make music that was dangerous, like was live, like that it felt like something could go wrong, that it didn't feel too safe. It didn't feel too produced. It didn't feel like I hit the space bar and everything was going to work out well.
Yeah. You're not just fist pumping for an hour.
Yeah, no. It literally felt like at any moment I could make a mistake or something could go really wrong. And that made me feel really excited. And I hope it like made the audience excited as well. I still look for that when I go to shows. Like I want to feel the performer feeling a little bit. This is like a will they, won't they? Can they pull it off? If the show feels a little too safe, it like feels too safe for me. I feel a little too safe there.
I understand the feeling. Yeah.
So yeah, I started to learn Ableton Live for my own creative practice as a way for me to like make performances that were a little more unpredictable and a little less prepared and a little more improvised. And then after school, moving back to the US, I moved to New York City and discovered there was like a whole group of people that were really like interested and excited and hungry to learn Ableton Live that didn't really have a lot of people teaching yet. There were like a lot more students than there were teachers available. So I started consulting and teaching and helping working with musicians. And this was probably around 2004, 2005. So New York is like getting into this sort of like, for lack of a better term, like the sort of like punk funk, like the Rapture, Chick LCD sound system, all of this stuff is like kicking off in Williamsburg. And so it was a really fun time to get in there and help a lot of performers like learn how to harness the software to be able to like create these performances that were a little bit loose, a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that quite a bit too. I was like, I used to throw parties with my friends and then like do the whole networking thing that way, like throwing shows, which turned into throwing small festivals. And I personally, as a drummer, feel naked if I just hit play or if I'm just DJing. Like I want to be able to interact and have that risk like you're talking about. And I mean, live gives you endless options to do that. And it's really fun. I love talking about live performance stuff on this podcast or with other artists because everybody seems to do it just a little different, which is just fun, that versatility. And as far as like your experience goes, I would love to hear more of your music because honestly, now that I think about it, I haven't heard a lot of your music. And I know you've made probably a billion unfinished tracks, I'm sure, from all the presentations you've done over the years. But all the stuff I've heard you make on the fly or just like teaching workshops and the times I've seen you, you're a phenomenal teacher.
Thank you.
You do a good job of getting really fast results and breaking it down in a really simplified way, which is definitely a gift in itself. Like you're a phenomenal teacher, educator, artist in itself.
Teaching can be really like liberating, I think, for you creatively. I mean, there's like that old adage that like you don't really know something until you have to teach it. Having to teach it forces you to like learn it and then break it down in a way that you can explain it to somebody else. But this thing can also happen when you get really busy with your work, where it's really easy to spend a lot of your creative juices on like creating musical ideas for the sake of like demonstrating a technique or illustrating a process or something. And so it can be really easy to feel like, wow, I wrote 13 songs this week and none of them sound like me. None of them are like the high, like artistic idea that I want to put out into the world, but they all like help show someone else something really meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done that many times. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, in terms of working in music, but also working on music all the time, I sometimes feel like there's this perception that if you didn't have your day job, you'd be able to be a really talented artist. And I feel like day jobs are not getting in the way of your music. John Cage was like a lifetime long mushroom hunter. One of the most famous composers of the 20th century paid his rent every month by like going out into the woods and finding really expensive exotic mushrooms and then selling them to restaurants around Manhattan. He had a day job through most of his life. If the day job is going to get in the way of you making music, then your own music career is going to get in the way of your music career. Being a musician is a ton of work. It is a day job. All of the marketing and promotion and organizing and travel and everything else involved in being like a working musician is absolutely a day job. No matter what, one of those will get in your way. I think the trick is to learn how to like find that happy balance where you do prioritize your own creativity and you do prioritize making time for your art. Whether you make all of your money from your art or you make all of your money from selling mushrooms or like talking to people about Ableton Live or whatever, it's sometimes really nice to get to separate like the making music from the making money and not have to worry about one providing the other and really kind of getting to keep the joy in the creative process in the first place. So
that's really well said, man. That's good. I think a lot of people need to hear that because I know I've struggled with that of being like, should I just quit my job and go all in with music? And I actually did that at one point. And then I just got burned out and stressed when money was tight. And I ended up finding myself not enjoying the process as much and being in the moment when I'm creating because I have this like weird thing in the back of my brain that's like, oh, I have to create something so great that people will like it. So then I can like sell tickets to the show or whatever it is. And then you just get stressed out and you don't necessarily enjoy it as much sometimes. And that's not always true for everybody, but it can easily, I think a lot of people can fall into that pit.
Yeah. You're in the studio working on a song and you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not like posting to my socials enough to be promoting this. I need to be like photographing this in the moment where you really need to be like focusing on writing a song and enjoying yourself. The process of not having a day job is its own day job.
Facts. Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
So, yeah. It is interesting. I realized about myself a long time ago that I do make my best music and I have the most fun making music when other people are watching.
Oh, interesting. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I'm like half tempted to start like a Twitch stream. Not that I think I have like the time or effort to be a hardcore streamer, but purely because I make my best music when I have like a friend over in the studio and I'm like, oh, hey, you have to check this out. Do you know you can do this with it? Or check out the way you can get this like bass tone out of this. And like from a very early on, I kind of realized that like getting to like demonstrate and share helps fuel my creative energy. I think in general with songwriting, anything that you can do to keep the fun part going longer is like a huge positive win. You know, the very first time I ever went to somebody's studio and they had like giant completely unflat, unneutral, completely very, very flattering, like KRK monitors set up.
Yeah.
And next to them, they have these like really, really expensive reference monitors, but they're like working for hours through these KRKs. And the first time I asked them, and they were like, well, I want to have fun. Like, I want to keep making this. I want to work on this beat longer. And I work on this beat longer when it sounds great to me. And so I want it to sound as awesome as it can.
Interesting.
2 days later into this process, when it's time to mix it, I'll pop this onto my reference monitors and I'll get surgical and I'll make sure I haven't made any mixing mistakes. But like right now in the first two days worth of work, or really even 2 hours of work, like the risk is not that I'm going to make a bad mixing decision. It's that like I'm going to stop working on this song.
This episode is sponsored by Magic Mind. Honestly, I am obsessed with this stuff. I take it in the morning, I take it before a workout, I take it before I do a podcast now. It gives you all the mental clarity and focus you need without the anxiety of chugging coffee or any other energy products out there that are bad for you. You might be wondering, Dan, why would I need to spend my good hard-earned money on an energy drink? Well, it's not just like all the other crap out there. It contains 130 times the antioxidants of regular green tea. I actually gave a giant box of it to KMG Studios, where I'm doing in-person podcasts now, and the box didn't last long. A lot of the artists, a lot of the engineers love it there. One little shot gives you a perfect combo of nootropics, adaptogens, functional mushrooms, and includes ceremonial grade matcha, as they call it. It also can decrease inflammation. It supports a healthy immune system. You can take it alongside your coffee or your tea if you're a coffee addict like myself, without giving you that extra jitter or making you feel anxious throughout the day. I can think more clearly. I can be a lot more productive whenever I take this little energy shot. Magic Mind is backed by over 240 scientific studies designed to boost energy, enhance focus, and create a sense of calmness and alertness. And it probably will be the best part of your morning ritual or any other moments where you need that extra boost of focus and memory and energy. Definitely check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It actually tastes good too. Just go to magicmind.com/Ableton. Use the discount code Ableton20 in all caps. That's Ableton20 and save 20%. Highly recommend this stuff. I'll be taking it all the time. And yeah, I definitely recommend for you as well. So give it a try. Go to magicmind.com/Ableton. Check out the link in the show notes for more details. That's good insight. There's a lot to unpack there too, because I feel like most of the time I'm just like producing as fast as I can when I'm feeling that creative state or energy. And then I go into like mixing cleanup mode later. And then sometimes I actually just take an idea that's mediocre and I spend forever trying to mix it because I think it's going to make the idea better. And it doesn't actually always work that way. And
totally. But I think in my case, it would be like having somebody watching me, having a little bit of an audience. Yeah. I read a few years ago that Animal Collective sort of like flipped their album writing and touring concept. They reversed it. Instead of us writing an album and then going out and touring the album, let's like write a live show and go tour the live show for the next like year. And at the end of touring the live show, let's like record it and that'll be the album.
That's interesting.
And I so connect with that as like an approach to creativity. This idea of like, let's like refine this through really interacting with other people and having an audience and playing around with it, finding the nuggets that are really magical and interesting, then make the record out of it at the end.
That's really brilliant too, because you can see how the crowd responds to all the tracks and then go through and pick the top most reactive songs. That's really interesting. I saw them once in Chicago, Man Beyond the Beach. I don't think it's a festival anymore. It was like a psychedelic experience. I was completely sober, and it was like one of the craziest live trippy performances. Like their stage presence, regardless of what's coming through the speakers, is like next level.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
So at the moment, I have a hard drive filled with like a live show that I'm preparing. Like I don't have I'm not worrying. I'm like not even worrying or working on like, how do I slice this up into songs? It's like, and put it up on a streaming service that I'll get paid fractions of pennies for. It's like, let me just write a live show. I'm actually in the early stages of doing a very similar thing. How are you going about writing this live show? Maybe you can talk details about it. There's a lot of different approaches for that. How am I going about writing my live show? I do think in terms of songs. Like I do have certainly different like sections and portions of the show that I intend to kind of slice up into different musical ideas that are not necessarily connected together, but they kind of all end up in one big set together, so that I'm constantly kind of mashing elements up together and finding bits that work from across these different songs. So there's it's almost sort of like that process of writing a bunch of material that you fully intend to like just sample yourself, going in and recording a bunch of drums with the intention that you're then going to load those up as loops into a sampler and slice them up and completely change them. It's that same sort of idea. So I'm sort of like filling my set with loops and ideas to then get to play around with what really becomes a song, how the song is structured.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I started doing something similar where I've got like all these different ideas. I went back through all my projects, which took forever, and I found stuff that was like 20% finished, like 20% or more. And then I took all those ideas, I started organizing them using this program called Makid. Have you heard it? It's like M-A-K-I-D.
Yeah, I did see this recently. Yeah.
Jesse Terry told me about it. And so it actually organizes all of your live projects by tempo, key, et cetera, and stuff. And you can have all that laid out. So then I can kind of take those ideas and build a live set from all these projects that I'm starting to working on. And each of them probably won't be longer than like a minute or a minute and a half. Because for a live show, not super often, unless it's your intention, you're not playing full tracks a lot of times, unless you're a band or something like that. That's kind of how I'm going about it.
There's a cool, I don't know if this would be useful to you or not, but there's a cool Max for Live device from this developer in Japan named Kentaro that allows you to do like batch export out of live. It's super popular for folks. Yeah, like literally you can throw this device into a live set, a live project, and you can hit the button and it will automatically go through and render out every clip as its own separate audio file with whatever length you tell it to be, and go through and like name them and everything. So imagine being able to have like an entire session view filled with loops and just like drop the device in, hit the button, and end up with a folder full of exported WAV files that you can then throw together into stuff. It's super powerful for people who use live for composing like game music, because lots of times with like session view is amazing for composing game music, because if you think about it, like a lot of game music is a live performance where the composer is not the performer. Like it's a live performance, but the player of the game gets to kind of control the composition. Right. So you need to like compose this music with the idea that like you have no idea how long it's going to take to get to the drop, because you have no idea how long it's going to take and how many times it's going to take before they get to the boss.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's like super powerful to create all of these ideas in session view and get to try out composing for a game in that really nonlinear way. But once you get there, if you want to get all those assets out in a way that you can like give to the development team to like put into the game itself, that's where this device, like a lot of those composers love this, because they can just drop it in and export all of those loops out to hand to the development of the game development team. That's brilliant. What's that called again? I think it's literally called like clip bulk export. Like it's literally named what it does. Yeah, he's made a whole bunch of devices. One of them does like bulk renaming and the other does like bulk export. And it's pretty slick. I found it. Yeah, it's called Max for Live Clip Exporter. Yep. By Kentaro, Kentaro. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll check that out, man. That's really brilliant. We've had some gaming people, guests on the podcast who have talked about different tools, but I haven't heard that one. That could be really valuable. Nice secret weapon. Yeah. You ask how I'm composing this. It might be time to plug my other favorite Max for Live device. Yeah, please do. This is the place for that. A lot of my melodic ideas, even before, so like Live 12 came out and it has some really, really amazing generative tools in it for like generating new melodic and harmonic ideas. But even before Live 12 came out, oh man, I'm like torn because I want to plug this because it's the coolest freaking thing and he deserves so many plugs. But like, I also feel like it's like my secret weapon and I don't want everyone to know about it because it's just so freaking cool that I want to keep it for myself. But Spectro Audio, which is a Max for Live and hardware developer based out of Brazil, makes these collections of different generative tools. At the moment, their new thing is actually a piece of hardware called NGen. That's like, it's a little bit like the Torso Electronics TS1. It's like a tool to let you generate and improvise electronic music on the fly. But they make a bunch of Macs for Live devices. And one of them, AcidGen, ACD Gen, is literally like an acid baseline generator, but it can do so much more than acid baseline generation. It's just so powerful to be able to, it really is like one of my secret weapons. When I get bored or lazy or I'm not sure where I want to go next, I literally can just throw acid gen into the project, bang the generate button a few times till I start to get something I like, and then hit the variation button until I like really fine tune in on exactly what I love. And then it will dump all that information out to MIDI clips for me to edit more and tweak and change. It has parameters. It has a bunch of different algorithms for how it approaches random generation. So it's not like with different weightings. So whether you want things to feel really busy or move around in octaves or have like a really classic 303 acid kind of a sound, or what do you want to get out of it? But oh man, I've just made so many amazing bass lines with this thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm all about that. I feel like that's where I struggle sometimes, is writing good bass lines. Like I can play little melodies and chords and stuff, and especially with Live 12, that's like easier than ever now in the MIDI clip. Yeah, totally. This is cool. I'll definitely check this out. This looks interesting.
He's even made the Acid Brain, which is a separate patch that lets you put 4 acid gens on 4 tracks and then like control them from the pads on push, so that you literally could have 4 separate tracks and just using the pads on push be able to like regenerate different bass lines on different tracks or different melodic lines on different tracks and like make a performance system out of it, which I think is kind of the goal of the new hardware he's built, like to have this hardware for people to just like create a real-time performance.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. I'll check that out. I'll add that to my massive list of things to download.
Of awesome generative tools to play with.
Yeah.
It's, it really hits the sweet spot. I think for me, what I've realized over the years is that I don't like things that are random and they're constantly random. Like I don't personally need the probability controls in the MIDI clips inside of Live, that they're super useful for other people. But for myself, I don't necessarily need something that's constantly random. What I really love is things like the way AcidGen works, or the way the MIDI tools work, or even like in the Eurorack world, the Turing machine is this module to like generate random melodies and rhythms. And what I've realized I love tools where I can like tell them to roll the dice and make something new, but then once they've made it, that's like the thing, and it loops this one fixed idea. It doesn't like change every single bar, because unless I'm making breakcore, which could be fun, I don't need it to change every single bar. I want it to come up with something new and then like repeat that.
No, exactly. I feel the same way, because before generative stuff I've used or sequencers, you just have to route into a new MIDI track and then you're printing just the notes. And then you have to go through this massive, super long clip and try to find that one sweet little 4 bars that you liked and then copy and paste. And it's like 20 steps later, you're like, I could have just played this. Like,
Yes. Well, and I think that's maybe one area where I feel like some people have misunderstood MIDI tools is like, MIDI tools is not meant to be like a write a song for me button. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't speak for everybody. Maybe there are absolutely some folks that have turned it into that. But I think the idea behind MIDI tools is it's more like, if you could create this faster by playing it, play it. Like you don't need to use these to, if you know the rhythm you want to create, like create the rhythm. This where I feel like they really excel is it's like, once you start to hit a roadblock of some sort, you know what I mean? Once you hit this point where you feel like, okay, I love this rhythm I have, but I need to go somewhere else. I can't stay here for my whole song. What's next? Okay, let me mess around with some of these transformations and see if I can make like a really interesting B or C or D part. Like, how do I add to what I have here?
That's exactly what I've been using it for. Or just like random chord ideas. It's like, okay, I've got this progression. Let me lock it into the scale awareness. Here's some chord ideas. And then I just keep running with it. So like with the stacks in particular, I love that. Yeah, maybe this is a good way for us to talk about like your favorite new Live 12 features. I mean, you're obviously a huge part of that process with the team. Push 3 and Live 12 is something you've been doing behind the scenes for a long time, I imagine.
That's true. That's true. That's true. We generally start seeing new features for Live, for the next version of Live, pretty early. Like there's this weird period where you're like seeing Live 11 with like a little part of Live 12 in it. We use Max for Live a lot as a way to like prototype and try things out before you commit to developing something, because it's just faster and easier. And you find the weird things or the unique things or the stuff you want to invest the time in faster. And then once you've like prototyped it, it's much easier to be able to share that Max device with like the rest of the team and be like, okay, let's design this.
Yeah, no, it's a really great like undercover way to get new stuff out, new features out.
Yeah. Oh man, my favorite features, there's a lot. I mean, I am a sucker for the time warp MIDI transformation. The MIDI tool transformation, time warp, is pretty wild.
Yep.
I mean, you can use it to create like, instant Aphex Twin Bucephalus bouncing ball stuff. Like that's just like, it's just drag one slider and you've made Bucephalus bouncing ball. But what I find really wild is it has the ability to quantize the start and the end times of all the notes as it changes them. And so once you turn on the like note on quantize, as you're adjusting the time warp, it's moving things around in time, but it's still snapping them to a grid. And so it's really like starts to remix stuff in really interesting, unexpected ways that doesn't necessarily feel out of time. Yeah. Unless you want it to be. Like then you turn quantize off and you can get totally wild and loose and off the grid and create acceleration or deceleration that has this totally wild groove that would be so time consuming to like either program by hand or to try to perform just right. So it really is the sort of thing that like, I don't know if I would easily make those ideas any other way.
Yeah, for people who aren't familiar, the time warp's in the transformation tools tab in the MIDI clip, just in case anybody got lost there. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. No,
you're fine.
There are so many different transformations, but like of all of those MIDI tools, of all those transformations, I think I have a soft spot for time warp.
I need to play with it more. I honestly haven't played with that one too much. I need to mess around with that some more. I love strum. I know a lot of people have talked how much they love strum because that way you don't have to like click and drag the notes. So it feels almost kind of like that offset of a note being multiple notes being played at a time for like.
Totally.
That was a nice feature. I use that a lot.
Totally. You can do it live too now with the MIDI effect device, like the chord MIDI effect device itself got updated.
Oh yeah.
And it also has a strum feature built into it. So it's interesting, like, it's kind of neat to see how like MIDI tools can create all of these functionality, sort of like in composer time, like when you're just sitting there looking at a page, thinking about how the notes should be, MIDI tools gives you all of these controls. And then you can create a lot of the same functionality, like in the middle of a live performance with the MIDI effect devices, which is sweet. So I think for me, oh man, there's a lot. I mean, sound similarity search is just an awesome feature for me. It's I will throw a whole track into my live set and then like just find a sound I like, select it, consolidate it so that it's its own audio file, and then just immediately bang sound similarity search to find other things in my library that sound like that little snippet of the song I like and go from there. And I like kind of combine that with rank. And this is not even a new Live 12 feature. This is like a new like Live 9 feature or something. But like you can sort the sounds in your browser by rank. And what rank is like how often you use a thing. So if you sort by rank, you could sort it so that all of the like sounds or presets or samples or whatever that you use the most like bubble to the top. But you can also flip that the other way around to deliberately, like the more you use something, the harder it becomes for you to find and use more. I kind of love that idea of like, no, sort it so that all the stuff you never use is at the top to kind of encourage you to branch out.
Brilliant. I actually stumbled upon that idea on accident. I was doing a workshop for the new Live 12 features and I was like, oh, well, you could just rank it when you do similar sounds. Yeah, that for people not listening, that's a really great way to do it.
I guess one that I have to plug because I feel like nobody even realizes it's in Live 12. There so much goes into a live update that when one of the things that I work on really hard whenever we get ready to release a new product is trying to figure out how in the world we go about sharing all of the stuff that's in this new version of the software or in the new update to the hardware with Live. There's like always so many features that there's no way to actually talk about all of them. Inherently, you like have to decide what's so important that you need to highlight it and what is something that people are just going to have to discover for themselves. One of the things that I think people haven't discovered yet, or maybe they have, maybe they haven't, for people who are like hardware performers, there is a new feature in Live 12 that goes by this really subtle term of like resync MIDI. What it does is it lets you take the MIDI clock that's coming out of Live, and it lets you map a button that when you bang the button at the beginning of the next bar, it automatically sends out MIDI timecode stop and instantly restart message. It's really subtle. What it does mean is that if you are like a hardware music maker and you've got like drum machines and synthesizers and stuff, and everything is like clocked to Live, first there's like the fixing a problem use of it. Like if you're in the middle of a live performance and you feel like your time clock is like drifting anywhere, you just bang this button and at the beginning of the next bar, everything's automatically snapped back into sync and they're all in time again. There's also sort of like the creative misuse for it. With most external MIDI hardware, if it's listening to MIDI clock, once you hit stop, there's like no easy way to restart it. Like I have a machine drum. For years, like I would sync my machine drum up to my mono machine. But there's always this dreaded moment of like, if you accidentally during a performance forget and you bang the stop button on whoever's not the clock, it stops and there's no way to start it again. The only way to start it again is to stop the whole clock and restart it again. So you literally have to like stop the music for stop everything and then hit start and start everything again.
Wow.
And this is super smart because it automatically sends this stop and restart like instantly, one after the other. You can almost turn all of your external MIDI hardware into like one clip in session view. Like you can almost say, you can hit play in Live and have all of this stuff going on and then just bang the button. And whenever you do, all of your external gear starts again on the top of the bar in time with everything. There's a setting to just choose to show it in the menu bar.
In the preferences. Okay.
It's under link, tempo, and MIDI, and there's this resync external hardware. There's this show resync button, hide or show. And if you show it, it shows up in the menu bar, the transport bar, right next to the tap tempo.
Brilliant. I didn't even know that was there.
And it's sort of like it's definitely like you either have a whole live show with a bunch of MIDI hardware or you don't. And if you don't need this button at all. And so just leave it hidden. It's just taking up room. Yeah. But if you are one of those people where you have like a whole bunch of synths and hardware set up, connected up to Live, people used to buy, there was this company in Europe that used to literally just make like this big box with like a big red, like launch the nuclear missile style button on it. And all that did was when you banged the button on the clock, it would send out a stop and restart message. Like its whole purpose was, I need to restart the MIDI clock, bang the button and everything will sync again. And that entire functionality is just like in Live now. So
that's nice.
If you have this whole hardware set and you're clocking all of it off Live, whether something drifts because of an accident or something drifts because you actually hit stop because you wanted to go up and like load another project or make a change to the device, you can just bang the button and it comes right back in on the one at the top of the bar and plays along with the rest of your stuff. And it's just such a neat thing that like no one knows that's in there. Nobody found that is in there. So,
yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. But that, and I don't clock a bunch of like external hardware regularly, but I can see how that would be extremely useful for people who've got modular stuff and external hardware that they're all trying to sync together. That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe my last thing, like I would be really remiss if I didn't shout out Meld. Like,
Meld's cool.
For me, like Meld is just like the fastest way to create some of like these classic synth sounds. Like the idea that if I want to make a super saw, all I need to do is load like a sawtooth swarm oscillator, and then I just have like two knobs that let me control how big my super saw is, and it's instant. Yeah. Or if I want to make like a really dirty like 808 drop, I can just load that zap algorithm and like immediately tweak a couple knobs, and I have this giant deep dropping 808 sound. Yeah, it's just such a fast way to do sound design work.
No, it is. There's not a lot of synths quite like it because you've got two completely independent oscillators that can also work together. So that's pretty fun. I love Meld. You can make some really wild sounds really fast with that thing.
the scale awareness of being able
Yes.
to like tweak the filters and tweak the oscillators and have all of them modulate like in the key that you're working in, and then just launch a different clip, and that new clip sets a different key, and all of those are mapped a different way instantly with like you not having to change anything. It's really, really fun to play with.
No, it absolutely is. Because how many times did you have to like try to dial in like just the little pitch type of things to make sure stuff is like lining up in key if you want that, or it's not like detuned too far out to where it just gets kind of weird. So
Totally.
yeah, it's a nice feature. Any other like favorite Live 12 or Push 3 things?
Oh, I mean, I think my favorite Push 3 feature just is Push 3. Like the idea that I can just sit down on my couch. No, but like literally, like it's what I kind of already liked to do with Push 2. It's this. So there's this thing where I don't know if we talk about this that much, but there is this thing with hardware where hardware makes it really easy to start an idea. Cheekily, it also makes it really hard to finish an idea. Like what it does is it gives you these creative limitations that give you this focus. So you can like focus in on that one thing you want to do. But then on most hardware, like if you want to take that idea that you've created on that box, like if I sit down at my machine drum and I want to create a really awesome 4-bar loop, and this whole amazing 4-bar loop like pours out of me so fast because I have the limits of the box I'm working on. And I can just commit to being 100% live and just hitting record on like a 2-track and recording the whole performance perfectly out of the machine drum and just having to live with it. And so I guess maybe if that's your approach, like it can help you get stuff finished. But when I do that, I just go back and listen to all of my songs and I go, oh man, I wish that like I wish I had turned down the hi-hat here, or I wish I could like EQ this just a little bit. And so then I have this challenge of like, I either have to completely let go and record everything straight to 2-track, or I have to like go through and solo each part and record each part in one after the other, soloed, and then like line them all up again and mix them all separately and create the arrangement. And so there's this sort of funny thing where like external hardware gives you this focus that helps you write fast, but then in a cheeky way, it does that by like making an even bigger roadblock for you to ever like get past that point. My machine drum filled up with songs that I'm like, this is awesome, but one day I'll find the time to go through and bounce each individual part out of this. Like one day I'll get there.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And depending on the machine you're working with, you might only have a stereo out that you could bounce, or you don't get the option to stem all the different pieces of what you performed. Yeah.
Totally. So for me, like with Push 3, to be able to sit down and have this like focused hardware that I can write on that has those same sort of like attractive, deliberate limits of like letting me focus in on the thing I want to do now and write without thinking about the computer and without thinking about the mix, and kind of get lost in the machine, and I look up and 4 hours have gone by and I need to eat. I need a glass of water. But then after I have that idea, to be able to just transfer it over to the computer and open it up in live and all of that work is done, the idea that like annoying process of going from the hardware to the computer is gone is like the killer thing for me. It like makes me so much more productive to be able to sit down at Push with like a Push and like a synth and like jam out ideas and capture things and like use it as my brainstorming station. And then to just be able to bring that stuff over to live. Like it's almost like my, the adage that like write drunk and edit sober kind of a thing of like creativity involves like one part completely non-judgmental, just creative fun, followed by like editing and like some critical listening and decision making in the edit process. For me, like Push nails that ability to like have that unadulterated fun first and then transferring it over to live for that like sober critical listening evaluation. It's like that sweet spot of the two.
No, I totally agree. It's nice to not have to look at a screen and get to that flow state and then not be completely stuck with whatever the result is. You can just go back to the screen and finish polishing all the different elements. And there's not really a controller out there exactly like that. Yeah, I think it's really cool. It's an incredible product.
Capture's like a killer thing for me in my workflow. Capture's like kind of how I used to work before Capture existed. Like I have this thing about the click track where I feel like the click track is easily the least soulful member of the band. And so it's very weird that like in most music production environments, every song starts with like the least soulful, like perfectly metrically regimented click. And so for me, even before Capture existed, I would just like leave the metronome off, hit record, and just record into a clip out of time. And then go back and use the like stretch notes feature to like stretch the notes that I recorded to line up with the bar lines, and then adjust the tempo to get back to the speed I played at. And I was like kind of creating a capture feature when none existed. And so for me, both in live and on push, to have this device where I can like literally never listen to a click track ever again, and just be able to sit down and start to play, capture the like the timing that I feel, and then just bang a button and it's like right there and I can keep working, is like, that's one of those features that I feel like was like made for me.
I'm the same way too, especially for drums. I'll play a lot of MIDI drums and just jam out. And then if I feel like I got a really good groove, it's all recorded. I think a lot of people would agree that it would be nice to have an audio version of Capture someday.
Ooh, that would be fun, wouldn't it?
Be really, for all of our guitarists and vocalists and audio recorders out there. Have you ever heard of Rolling Sampler? It's a VST.
I haven't used Rolling Sampler.
It's basically an audio capture in a
Interesting.
VST.
This is not its intended use case, but you can also do a little bit of this with Granulator 3, because Granulator 3 has like the ability to capture audio in real time into it, and it is always rolling. Like it's actually listening before you bang the capture button. So just like Capture, you can like make a sound you love and then like bang the capture button in Granulator 3 and it's like already in the buffer.
Yeah, because you can drag the audio out of it, right?
You can save those. There's a button right in it to be able to like save the contents of Granulator to a clip. Yeah.
How long does it record?
Sort of do it. It's not like that's not the solution to the problem, but it's yet another fun way to find a creative solution.
I've had a lot of fun with Granulator 3. I will say that's something that should be highlighted in 12, in my opinion. It's fantastic for that instant like audio recording. It's got the new cloud algorithm, which is like really smooth and dreamy, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
How long does it record? Do you know?
Ooh, that I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know. That's a really good question. It's definitely several seconds, but I don't have the exact number off the top of my head.
Are there any features, and you don't have to say whether it's in development or not, because I know you're probably not allowed to say, but
I actually can't. Yeah.
Are there any like features that you personally wish were like maybe a part of Live in the future, maybe Live 13 or Push 4 or whatever, like any features that you're like, this would be nice if you had to think of anything?
I mean, the thing I personally need the most is I need something that arranges for me. That's what I personally in my own creative practice, that's the part that's the most arduous. Like, ironically, I feel like Silicon Valley is filled with people that are like creating tools that you can like bang a button and it will like create the beginning of a song. And it's like, man, I have no problem creating the beginning of songs. My hard drive is filled with the beginning of songs. That is not a problem I need you to solve for me. Yeah, I have the beginning of so many songs. What I need is an algorithm that looks at all the ideas I have and helps to create some structure for them. And like, so I would be much happier with an algorithm that I could like bang a button and it like took my session view and then made like 9 arrangements for me. And then I could just like pick which of the 9 I like and make some changes to it. That would be my dream. Yeah. So that would be really freaking cool.
There was an actual Max for Live tool that did some kind of arrangement for you.
Song Sketch.
Song Sketch. That's what it was. Yeah. I haven't played with it.
It is cool and it does speed up your work. And if you tend to work with, I don't think that it has, and maybe I'm mistaken and I should play with it more, but I didn't get the sense that it like would randomize arrangements. Like, I don't know if it has, maybe it does. It would be kind of cool if like an update to Song Sketch had like a seed where you could kind of pick the arrangements and it would like, there was some element that would be different every time. But I think what it does is I think it has like a collection of popular arrangements and it will like speed up the process of taking a bunch of clips in session view and putting them into this structure in the arrangement, which is cool. That definitely is an incredible labor-saving device, but I feel like I want that little bit of variety.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. I guess I'm looking at it right now. I don't know if it randomizes it for you, but it will organize it and do copy and pasting of clips.
Yeah, and it's a super useful tool. Like, don't get me wrong. It is, if you do also feel like you struggle with creating arrangements, like Song Sketch is a really, really fun tool to work with.
Yeah.
You can go through and sort of tell it like what parts of the clips you've already created are bass lines, what parts are drums and melody, and it has a whole bunch of like the most common arrangements for a ton of different genres. And I think you can even get like the like bigger pack of even more genre arrangements. And it will just instantly take all those clips and put them into an arrangement for you and let you listen to it. And if you like it, it'll put that into the arrangement view for you. So super slick.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. Any other like wish list items for you?
Well, I mean, so yeah, I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's like, it's funny, every time anything gets added to Ableton Live, what it does is create the desire for like 8 more things in a response to that. So like the new browser has like tagging throughout and the ability to save searches for these tags. And you can like, that's super useful because you can like make a search that is like everything tagged compressor. And then you can go through all of the devices in Live, all of the plugins you have, any Max for Live devices you have, and like just tag them compressor. And then when you click on the save search, it finds like all your compressors, regardless of like whether they're a built-in Live device or a Max for Live device or a VST plugin or an audio unit plugin. Like it doesn't matter. It just finds all the compressors. So like the ability to save those searches is really, really cool. I personally would love to be able to save those searches as folders. What I really want to do is I want to have like folders and then I can put those folders in folders. So I would love to be able to have like a folder and inside it were 5 other folders. And in those 5 other folders were like one folder had all of my like distorted basses and one folder had all of my melodic basses and one folder had all of my my like boomy basses and so on. Or for example, like I would love to have one folder that was just called like effects, and then inside it I could have my subfolder for compression or dynamic devices and my subfolder for utility effects or EQs. But yeah, that would be a dream for me.
Yeah, because you can save searches. You can save searches, but you can't like do them as subfolders.
Yeah, you can't currently have like any hierarchy to them, which I think would be pretty sweet.
Right. Yeah.
I'd love for push 3, I'd love to see like custom user interfaces for Max devices. Like there's all these Max devices that have come out that have like the most beautiful user interfaces. All of the Force synthesizers and stuff, they have like these gorgeous user interfaces, and they work on push, and they work on push standalone, but they sort of fall back to like a very simple like knob based user interface. And I would love if there was like a way that developers could like make their own user interfaces for push. That'd be pretty sweet.
That would be cool. That would be amazing. Yeah.
By the way, definitely none of these are hints. I have no idea what we're working on. I don't even know if we're sure what we're working on yet. Who knows? There is a lot of times I feel like features in Live are, you go through this period of like, just like songwriting. You write a bunch of songs and you sort of evaluate which ones are really good and which ones you like and which ones you don't and which ones you think belong together and which ones don't. Yeah, I have no idea if anybody's working on these or if they, or like if they're going to ever make the cut or, That resync MIDI feature from earlier, that's like an example of this. Like one of our developers literally during a hack week was like, I want this for my own hardware setup. And so he just designed it during a hack week. Because, at Ableton, we have this period every few months, the developers get a break where like they get like a week or two to like work on whatever thing they want to work on. Just to like, get to explore something new, grow as a developer, try something out. And so they get this period of like, hey, for the next 2 weeks, you build whatever you want to work on. It can be anything. And that's one of those things. Over the years, things like the guitar tuner, the tuner that's in, I think came in Live 9 or Live 10, was like a hack week. The MIDI resync button was another hack week project that just came out really well. And we're like, we should share this with other people.
I love that.
I mean, it's interesting to think about in your own process. Like there are really fun things I've seen from working inside the company just in terms of process that like totally apply to my own creative process. Like when you're trying to brainstorm an idea, don't worry about coming up with one solution. Make it much harder for yourself. Come up with like 6 solutions or 8 solutions instead. And then like challenge yourself to think about more. That's actually my approach to arranging. For me, I like get stressed out when I arrange a song because I start to get too precious about the song. The reason I hate arranging a song is because arranging a song is that moment where the infinite possibility of what exists in the session view has to disappear. And I have to say goodbye to the like 17 different directions that this song could go. And all of them are cool and interesting. And I have to like let go of all of the potential. And instead it like becomes this one thing. And that's really hard for me. And so like the trick that I actually took from work was like, I don't make an arrangement. I make 6 arrangements. I take the same song and I just arrange it 6 different ways. And it's so time consuming, but it means that I'm like suddenly not precious about it. I suddenly get away from feeling like, oh man, okay, it has to be this way. And it becomes, it's okay if this is weird. I'm going to make 3 more. I'll make this version. And if I don't like it, that's great. I'm going to make 3 more. I'm going to make 5 more. And then I can go back and decide which one I really, really love and which one really is the like final edit 3 final.
3.0, 3.01.
Right. Yeah. Why am I still working on this?
I think most producers have commitment issues at some point.
Yeah. So that's one of those things that I think I took from work that has served me really well in my music practice as well. This idea of like come up with several solutions.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I've got a list of Ableton Fix updates and like suggestions that maybe I'll share with the team someday because I have a running laundry list of things I would like to see done, but I'm sure I'm one of a million people. I'll have to get in line for that.
No. Like totally get on Center Code and put the suggestions in. Like the developers really do read through Center Code like on a daily basis and review what's happening in there and look at things that are upvoted. And I think it comes down to this question of like, how do you prioritize with all of the different stuff that we'd like to do and all of the different stuff that the entire community would like to see happen? How do you pick and choose exactly what things you can dedicate your time to now and what has to wait a year, 2 years?
It's a lot. It's a lot to like manage for sure for the team. I can imagine there's a bunch of people and everybody has an opinion, right? So
totally. Like I would love to see plugin sandboxing, but I would love to see plugin sandboxing that doesn't suck. Cause like right now it's funny, like not sandboxing plugins sucks because bad plugins crash your set. But plugin sandboxing also sucks. Every time you sandbox plugins, you add latency to every plugin that you sandbox, and you add CPU load to every plugin you sandbox. So I would love to see like somebody come up with plugin sandboxing that like doesn't suck. Because right now, like both plugin sandboxing sucks and not plugin sandboxing sucks.
No, that would be nice. That would be a really nice feature. I support that idea as long as it doesn't suck. So I know we're up on the hour, but I would love to pick your brain on a last couple things.
Yeah.
Is there any favorite tools for live looping or live performance? I know you've worked with a lot of different artists when it comes to their live setups.
Oh man, this is
common problems or workarounds that you've seen.
I think the most, so there's the cop-out answer to this, which is that the challenge that everybody always has is latency. Everybody wants to hear everything from their live show rendered in real time, but they also want to do it with the lowest possible latency. So the super cop-out answer is like buy a really, really decent audio interface and the most powerful computer you can get your hands on. Yeah. That's the sad cop-out answer for like the most common problems with live looping. But I really like the performance pack that's just come out with Live 12.
Me too.
There's a new device in there that's focused around live looping through the arrangement view that I think is going to be super powerful for some people. And maybe this is interesting actually, because like live looping is crazy personal. I don't know if I've ever met two people that want to live loop in exactly the same way. I think one of the reasons Ableton Live became popular for live looping in the first place is because it's like there isn't one workflow. It's like a Lego kit, so you can like design your own live looping setup.
Yeah.
I think for some people, when they live loop, they want to work in the session view and they want to be able to capture loops into clips themselves. And I think this is like super powerful to be able to live loop and break out of the sort of stereotypical structure of a live looped song, which is like, I record one layer, I add a bunch of layers on top, and then I get rid of all the layers and I record again. It's that sort of like stack and drop and stack and drop. Session view can be really powerful for this because you can record into a bunch of tracks and create A sections and then record into different scenes and record B sections and then record into different scenes and create C sections and then be able to move back and forth between them or mix them together. So I feel like working in session view can be really powerful if you want a live loop from the standpoint of like an improvised performance where you're literally making it up off your head as you perform. For that, there's a really classic live looping template. There's like a live looping template that usually involves one audio track that's listening to your instrument in real time. And it's usually where you put whatever effects you want to put on that instrument live. And it's usually set to like monitor in so that you're not ever really recording on that first track. It exists just as like your main source track. And then I feel like the solution that I've seen that's the most elegant is having several other loop tracks that take their audio from that first in track, and all of them are set to monitor off, and all of them have record arm turned on to begin with. So you don't have to mess around with switching tracks, and you don't have to mess around with arming tracks. All the tracks are already armed, they're all there, and they're all just sitting there with like those big, wonderful record circles waiting for you. So as you play at any time on any track in any clip slot, you can just tap on an empty clip slot or tap a pad on a launch pad or a push or whatever and like start to record that new idea into that spot. And then of course, like when you get to the end of the loop, if you tap the same pad again or you launch that recording clip again, it automatically goes out of recording and goes right into looped playback. Yeah. So for me, that's like takes out so many of the headaches to not have to think about switching tracks, to not have to think about arming tracks, and to literally just be able to like tap pads to start capturing ideas, tap the pads again to stop capturing and start looping those ideas, and go from there and be able to build up layers of things across your different tracks. And from there, you just decide, like, do I want 4 loops? Do I want 8 loops? Like, how thick am I going to create my stack of ideas? But there's a whole scene right underneath that first one that you can record 8 more ideas and start to mix them together. So that's like my approach to live looping in the session view. In the arrangement view, I would totally say dive into the performance pack. The new arrangement looper in the performance pack is pretty genius. It lets you create dummy clips or guide clips. Like it literally lets you make empty MIDI clips, and it uses the MIDI clips purely to let you like sketch out what your arrangement should look like once it's recorded. And then the device will literally automatically arm tracks and automatically start to record and stop recording, and even like take clips and copy them to other parts of the song based on that like guide that you've set up in your arrangement view. So for people that want to live loop and they have like a really well-known song structure, you know, they're not like, it's not a big improvised performance. It's performed live, but they know they want to have like an intro and a verse and a chorus and a bridge, and they know they want to come back for an outro and all of this stuff. The device is perfect for like letting them create that whole structure and like being committed to that ahead of time. And then they literally just hit play and start to record, and it just will capture all of their ideas and put them into the right spots throughout the arrangement for them. And away you go. I helped work on a live show with a theater artist, one of the original cast members of Stomp, like no 15 years ago. And he wanted to do this. He literally wanted to be able to walk around the stage and record different percussion instruments and build up all these loops. But then after he'd built up all these bed loops, he wanted to be able to walk up to the microphone and like sing and have all these loops turn into a song structure. And at the time we had to do this incredibly complex workaround of like, he would go record all the loops in session view. And then once he'd recorded all of them as loops, he would trigger this one MIDI clip. that was doing MIDI loopback. And so it would like, its sole purpose was to mute and unmute and launch and deactivate different clips in time to like create his song structure.
Yeah.
That took weeks and weeks to like design the show and rehearse the show. And it was like so brittle. And like with the new arrangement looper device, like I could have like helped him design that whole show from like a technical level in probably like one weekend. Like it's wild how much time it saved.
I imagine that.
Yeah.
I mean, the workaround I had for that was either using CliffX or like a couple different Max for Live devices, which the performance pack just kind of engulfed like a lot of different Max for Live devices that already existed and just kind of put them into one place. Which is kind of nice. I think variations is a huge update, I think, within that performance pack, because you can automate your entire set basically just using that and just launching variations, which is incredible. So that was a really nice update.
And that particularly combined with like the new key and scale functionality with like the key and scale per clip. The idea that you can like have these clips in a session and launching the new clip automatically sets up the correct key and scale for your controller. It automatically like maps whatever MIDI effects and synthesizers you're using to the key and scale that you want to be playing in for that part.
I didn't even think about using scale with it.
And it can also trigger all of these snapshots to like configure all of the sound design, all of your timbres exactly the way you want them to be, turn on whatever effects are supposed to be on. Like in terms of live show automation for like building a complex performance where people literally just say, okay, we're firing the bridge. And when you fire off the bridge, automatically all your controllers are like moved to E flat minor and it has turned on the reverb that you want to have on during the bridge. And it's like created the megaphone effect you want to have on your vocal for that section, all like just by triggering a clip.
I love that. I asked Jesse Terry, and maybe you know this, is the performance pack built, or does that work with the Push 3?
Yeah.
It does.
In fact, it's one of the super cool things about it is the device that's in there to let you create your own controller layout. The Max device that lets you literally open up a floating window and design a controller layout in front of you, and then assign those controls to like whatever parameters you want to make them like really complex macros. It like totally works on Push standalone. So you can use it to create all of your own complex performance macros for Push standalone.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That's the Performer, I think, right?
Yeah.
In the Performer, you can build your own custom mappings for like virtual MIDI controllers. That thing's pretty deep, especially for using external hardware.
Yes, the whole performance pack is really deep. It's probably a little intimidating for people who are just getting started.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's that one's called Performer. So Performer is the one that lets you create your own like interfaces and your own mappings for Push and any other controller. Yeah. And then the other one we've been talking about is Prearranger. It lets you like kind of create an arrangement before you've recorded any of your ideas and then literally record into that arrangement.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in the Live 12 update. And I feel like a lot of it was production based. So it was cool to see Ableton really introducing some new stuff for just the live performance aspect.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
I think it comes down to like how you think about using the tools, you know, like, probably arguably like MIDI tools might be, and I think you could even debate this, but like MIDI tools might be the only part of the Live 12 update that's like kind of conceptually like songwriting. Like it's focused on like working on MIDI with your mouse in the studio while you're creating rather than on stage. Because it's interesting, we like get into this headspace of like, oh, I'm going to use all this for songwriting, for my music creation. And so like, I think it's easy for people to feel like the update is really focused around that. But like, I think a lot of that's perspective. Like all of the MIDI effect devices are things you'd probably use on stage. Being able to have strums and arpeggios and things that respond in real time. Like that's a performance feature.
Yeah.
The new synths and effects, you can use them on the studio or the stage.
It's true.
The key and scale is actually like more implemented. It's implemented in a way that's really elegant when you're writing. Don't get me wrong, but like it's definitely, they put a lot of thought into how you might like to use it, like when you're performing. This idea that the reason it's like per clip and not like a global setting is that normally during a performance, you're going to, throughout the course of a night, like if you're performing a set, you're going to absolutely have key changes. You might have several in one song, let alone like in a whole set. And so the idea, you also might want to be in different scales per track. You might totally be working in like melodic minor for your melody, and you might be working in harmonic minor for your chords. And then you might be working in like minor pentatonic for the bass line, all in the same scene at the same time. So the idea that just switching tracks automatically like selects this new clip and changes all those settings for you in the middle of a performance is like a really powerful performance tool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it just comes down to your headspace of like how you plan to use the feature.
No, that's true. That's a good point too, because a lot of this could be applied for performance or studio. Well, like transitioning real quick, and I know I'll let you go. I know you've got plenty of things I'm sure to do today. What's like some new music tech that you've discovered that you're excited about? Anything new, software or hardware?
Does it have to be something that's released already?
No, it could be something completely unreleased.
This is not, I don't know if there is a tool that does this yet, but the thing that I have stumbled on recently that I found the most interesting to me is the generative concept, like the AI generative concept of in painting and out painting, which is like this terminology that comes from like AI image generation. What I realized a long time ago is that like I do not want to type at a computer about music. Like for me, tools like Suno are really interesting, but I feel like they're clearly designed for people to try to like replace musicians. Like the idea is that Spotify doesn't have to pay royalties to anybody, and instead Spotify listeners can just like type in what they'd like to hear and it will make something up for them.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's not how I want to make music. Like, that's not a pleasant part of my creative process at all, to be like, make a bass line using these descriptive terms. Because for me, so often creating music is wanting to express something that I can't easily express in words. If I can just type it and sum it up with 5 words, that's like, there aren't the right 5 words to help capture what I want to get out through this 4 minutes worth of music. If there were, I probably wouldn't have to make it.
No, it's a good point.
So what's interesting to me, I recently stumbled on this idea of in painting and out painting. And in painting is like, if you use the image metaphor, is like, here is this picture, add some more detail to the picture. And so maybe it like fixes the red eye, or maybe it like removes that fence post that's in the way of the subject of the picture. It adds a little more detail into the image itself. And then outpainting does the opposite. It literally says, okay, here is a picture that's like a little snapshot. Can you imagine everything happening outside the border of the picture? Like, can you create more detail outside of the frame? So like, here's a picture of somebody on a blue sky with a palm tree. Can you imagine the whole island? Generate the rest of the scenic beach island behind them. And those techniques feel super freaking musical to me. That sounds so exciting. I would love to be able to say like, hey, here's an 8-bar phrase. What do you think the next 16 should sound like?
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That could definitely help with the arrangement.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't want to write prompts. I want to write music.
No, I agree. It's anybody can write 5 words in a text prompt to get whatever they want, you know? I think you're right. Like capturing that human expression is something that's not easy to put into words. But if you have, say, like a song that's 30 seconds, as you're like, I love this idea, put it into this model, and you're just like, give me the next like minute of it, like, you know, or a minute and a half, and just let it just finish it off. That would save a lot of time.
It's sort of a similar process, like a similar promise to MIDI tools of like this idea of like, I already have some ideas, help me move further. Like rather than me having to type text prompts at you, here is a rhythm I love. Here is the beat and the bass line that I'm already super fired up about and I like working with. Where do you think it should go next? You know?
No, that's great. That whole like idea generation, I'm all about that. I mean, there's like stability AI, stable audio. Like I think in the 1.0, it would just like recreate short loops or one shots of samples. Here's a kick, give me 10 more kicks with the same sonic characteristics. It makes me wonder what the future of Splice or programs like that are going to look like when you could just do that and you say, here's an example. Here's my 4-bar loop. I want you to give me 10 more 4-bar loops that are like this that I could choose from. And that could be really powerful too, without even finishing the whole song, just being able to swap samples or like generate, loops of things that are based off of what you have.
Certainly as a tool to create source material to then chop and hack at and it, like make your own. Yeah.
It's a
that's
wild world,
be an interesting
it's
one.
Crazy. Any other tech outside of just AI?
I mean, what I personally want in my studio is I want to get this NGen generator from Spectro Audio. I don't know if I have my $600 at the moment, but I totally want, there's even more cool algorithms that I love from this designer that I love in a cute little hardware box that I can plug in on stage next to my gear. So I'd love to get one of those. They're actually already sold out. Like the best I could hope for if I had the spare money was to like get in on the next batch when they get made.
What is this again?
It's from Spectro Audio, and what he's done is taken some of the algorithms and stuff that have already been created for Macs for Live devices or plugins, and some new algorithms that don't exist anywhere, and he's put them into this piece of hardware that can generate MIDI and CV, and so you can sort of use it a little bit like a creative algorithmic brain for a live show.
That's cool.
So super interesting.
Really cool.
It's a little bit like the Torso Electronics TS1, which is like an algorithmic sequencer. It's a little bit more, it feels even less like, here are the rules. It's a little more like, bang this button and get wild, unexpected musical surprises.
Yeah, give me some of that. That's interesting.
Give me some wild, unexpected musical surprises.
Yeah. No, this looks cool. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Hopefully there'll be more because I want to play with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to take out a loan to keep up with all this gear I keep hearing about.
This is true.
I want to respect your time. I'm sure we could keep talking for hours about all this stuff. Huge honor to have you on the podcast. I always love seeing your face. And last but not least, anything else you wanted to plug or new projects you're working on, things you wanted to share for people to hear about?
Hey man, thank you for having me. I'm always working on new exciting things to kind of help the Ableton community feel inspired and connected and to help like surface the coolest stuff that's happening. So rather than like plugging my own stuff, I think what I would love to do is plug the idea that if you have amazing stuff that we should know about, please tell me. Get in touch and let me know about the things that you're doing to help support other musicians around you and help like grow the community of people making music and keep people inspired and challenged and growing. That's like, I think what I'd like to plug most.
Oh, well, that's very humble of you.
Always get in touch with me through ableton.com. I do have my own website that's just like my personal place for me to park my own personal thoughts. That's noisegarage.com. But yeah, I mean, I would really love to plug that, like anybody out there doing interesting stuff for the community of musicians that you feel like we could help with, get in touch.
I'll include the links in the show notes for people to get in touch with you with your website and stuff. Cool. But yeah, man, you've done a lot of work with the community with Ableton over the years, and always a pleasure seeing you for sure, and excited to see what's next. I know you guys are constantly working on new things all the time, and I love how much you've invested into the community of user groups and certified trainers. You've been a huge part of the company, especially within all the aspects of the community and what's being released. So pleasure having you on the podcast, man. Maybe we'll have you back another time. It'd be fun.
Hey, man, it has been an honor. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Do me a huge favor if you would and hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening to the podcast. If you don't hate the podcast, please leave a 5-star review. It would help me out a ton. Don't forget to check back on Tuesdays for new episodes. I plan on cranking out a lot more in the upcoming future, Also, if you didn't know, on Spotify, if you click on an episode on mobile, you can interact there and you can tell me what you think about this episode and other episodes, and it would be great to hear from you and see what you're thinking about the podcast. If you want to be the first to get new episodes and stay updated and get free new devices and sample packs and other stuff that I'll be sending out in the future, join the newsletter. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter and or check out the links in the show notes. Make sure to give this guest a follow on the socials, give them some love for spending their time. And once again, thanks for listening to the podcast. I will see you next time. Later.